All right, everybody. We're going to get started here. Thank you as the attendees start to join in. I'm Sal Marino, Head of Strategic Partnerships here at Charles IT. And today I am going to be having a pretty casual conversation here with a good friend of mine. That's Ivan here on the call. Ivan is a former MSP owner himself and has a ton of knowledge of the industry and now is able to kind of talk a little bit more in detail about what things you really should be asking, the ways to get the most value out of your MSP, your IT relationship, from the perspective of someone who ran that exact business and is now on the other side of that. So, Ivan, I'll give you a minute here to just do the quick introduction of yourself and your background, and then we'll just kind of take it from here and kind of go through what people should be thinking about when they're talking to their IT team.
Cool. Thanks, Al. My name is Ivan Mladenovic. I ran an MSP in Miami, Florida called Primo for 12 years. Sold the business a couple years ago, and then worked for the company that acquired my business called Thrive, which was based out of Boston and was one of the largest MSPs in the country. So I've kind of seen the whole front side of MSP, being an MSP owner, interfacing with clients, doing the technical part of the business. And I'm looking forward to the conversation. Honestly, I thought a lot about sort of like what I would tell my clients if they were interviewing an MSP, or what I would tell my clients who use an MSP is, hey, think about this, what works here. So very much looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, and again, for those in attendance today, our goal is definitely to have this be no holds bar. We're going to ask and answer as many questions as we can. We have a bunch of topics to run through that will give you, the insight into things that you should be thinking about and making sure that you're having these conversations and the why behind those things. Because starting to work with a managed service provider is not only about the cost. That's certainly a factor in that conversation, but there's so many other things that go into play that justify whether the cost is low or the cost is high. And those are all the things that we're going to kind of run through today. So I think one of the first things, Ivan, we can jump into here is talking specifically about like what good looks like, right? Like, how do you know what to ask, right? If I say, is it response time? Is it like, is it, talking about how quickly you're going to resolve that issue? Is everything included? Like, how do I know what good even looks like when I'm, evaluating an MSP?
It's a pretty subjective question, but I think that MSPs in general all kind of sell the same thing, which is they're going to offload the responsibility of technology, cybersecurity, infrastructure off onto them. But by default, an MSP is an outsourcing model. There's definitely cases when there's hybrid versions of it, but I think this isn't too different from any other professional service provider in that you have to feel confident that that your partnership or your relationship with that provider is mutually beneficial, right? So, and obviously as the client, maybe a little more in your favor. I think a lot of businesses, particularly at the scale and size that MSPs are getting involved, are really looking for that partnership relationship, are really looking for a really dense, integrated experience working with an MSP, not just, hey, my laptop doesn't print, can you please fix? Help desk is just one part of it, but good is, to me, or great, better yet, is the encompassing experience of outsourcing something or delegating something to a partner like an MSP, and feeling good about the result, feeling good about what you pay, feeling good about how the service is delivered, feeling good that it's actually delegated and it's not like constantly coming back to you with challenges or questions. At the end of the day, you're trying to relieve yourself of a responsibility instead of hiring that team inside. So hopefully that relationship actually reduces load, reduces risk, and creates a ton of value for your business.
Yeah, so let's pull on that thread a little bit, right? Because I think the relationship piece is something that I think a lot of organizations miss. And I think that's because there is no like defined roadmap of what you should be doing as part of maintaining a relationship. And so, yeah, you got to call and give them updates of what's going on, or if there's issues, or if something goes sideways, like you're having those conversations, but that's not really like the relationship, right? I think you would agree that's more like tactical help desk, like we're in that world
Yep.
servicing the account. Talk to me about what like makes a relationship. Like, how do you know that you're potentially going to walk into a good relationship with your MSP?
I don't differentiate it from any other relationship. Like, I think that a relationship is rooted in people having similar core values, similar philosophy about how it works. And at the end of the day, like, I think you can also separate the professional relationship. So in my MSP, we definitely had a professional relationship with our clients. We would service the needs of the agreement we signed for them, and they would pay us. That they're part of their agreement. The other side is like the actual relationship, the personal relationship. So like in a lot of cases, my clients became my friends. They were colleagues. They were, I would refer them business. They would refer me business. And so I think that a true partnership transcends the agreement. It transcends the professional relationship, and it actually becomes something where you dive deeper. You double click into the relationship and say, oh, I heard you talking about the school your kids go to. Do you like that school? Like, I'm looking for a new school for my kids. Is that something we should consider? And the relationship gets deeper and denser, and as a result of that, ultimately, that also makes a more uh, complete relationship, a more solid relationship. It makes you as the client feel more comfortable in who you're entrusting in these services. Also, if you have a problem, now you're bringing your problem to somebody that you don't just have a contractual relationship with. It's someone that you actually have an actual real relationship with. So the likelihood that problems will be solved quicker, faster, with more attention is certainly higher. I also think that there's something to be said about being a good client, right? Like, it's not just paying your bills on time. It's also how you communicate with your provider or your partner. It's do you absorb the recommendations and process them as part of your budget and move forward? Is it a static business? So it's very much, in a lot of ways, I keep repeating the word partnership because we use that word. I think it's very much like something that is very collaborative between the MSP and the client.
Yeah, I love that. And I think for me, one of the things that I love the most about like how we handle relationships in general is like they're they're truly an extension of your team. And what I mean by that is like, great, what charity events do you guys participate in and where can we get involved? Right? Like, where can we help? Are you putting on any events that again we could, show face in and show support and kind of be a part of that? Or even silly things like taking someone golfing, or they're a Miami Heat fan, right? And we have tickets to go to the Knicks or do something like that. Those are the things that bring it outside of just what the relationship is that you signed on the piece of paper. It's truly like we're friends, we're hanging out, and
Yeah.
I think that builds the relationship capital, which is like one of the most important parts of a business relationship.
I think a lot of that is tied to vulnerability, and like we can go on a huge tangent about how to build relationships. But to me,
Yeah.
like if someone asks me how's your day, how's it going, like the first conversation, I walk into the office, hey, how are you? Good to see you. How's it going? I'm happy to say like I'm out of a tough day. Like here's why it's tough. Like I woke up this morning and like my foot hurt. Now I have to go see a doctor, and I really like playing basketball on the weekends. I won't be able to play for a couple months. Like so, I'm happy to actually have a human relationship that's not just, no, I'm having a great day, the sun is shining. Like I think that's not authentic. Maybe that's the right word to like narrow in on. Is like, is the relationship with your client or with your MSP authentic, or is it just a self-serving relationship? Like to me, I mean, I'll push back a little bit. Like if you're asking me what nonprofit I support just because you want to throw a few bucks at the nonprofit, I don't think that's it. But if we find out that we actually are in support of the same nonprofit by coincidence, and we get to like run in that nonprofit's 5K at the end of the year, that's a huge win. We get to do something that has nothing to do with work, nothing to do with the professional relationship. We're actually like deepening the personal relationship.
Yeah, I love it. And so, outside of the, the relationship side, we talked again, what good looks like and what matters. And again, it's response time, resolution times, project delivery and execution, making sure that we're communicating effectively. I think understanding what those metrics are, don't just ask for the SLA, right? The idea is like, walk me through what actually happens. If I call you, what happens? Do you answer? Is there an answering service? Is there an IVR? Is there no answering? It just goes to voicemail. Do I only submit through tickets? Like, you got to ask those questions because, again, if this is a purely cost qualifying conversation, like, you'll probably pay less to be able to send a ticket in as the only way to be able to communicate with your IT team than if you pick up the phone and they answer the phone within seconds.
I think it's perfectly acceptable for you also to tell your MSP what good looks like for you. Like the MSP is saying, oh, we will answer your phone call in minutes. We will resolve your ticket in XY time. We will schedule a quarterly business review. And I would say to you, MSP, Mr. MSP, if you sign me up for your email newsletter, I will terminate the contract. Like if you don't answer my phone call in 24 hours from me, the CEO of the company, like I will have a problem. And so on. Like I think that setting all those expectations are like kind of like building the structure of what good looks like, and that's outside of the scope of like the obvious. Like I know you want to run a quarterly business review with me. Like for me, it'd be better to do that on a remote basis. Is that okay? I think our business will need a lot of stuff in the first year or 2 years of the contract, and maybe like go off on the third year. Or like we're really we're working on some major acquisitions in the business. We're concerned about signing a long-term engagement. Is there a possibility of doing a shorter-term engagement and kind of work through it? But at the end of the day, like my experience has been that most MSPs are willing to work with a customer's needs, whether they're growth related, whether they're limitations, whether they're circumstantial. And so if there's a dialogue in the assessment and sales process, kind of the initial part of the relationship, that expectation will be met much better if it's like right out in the open.
Yeah, 100%. So expectations are super important. Relationship is super important. What about ROI? Because I feel like that's a question that comes up a lot, and you have I see people scrambling to try to like come up with a way to say that this is what the ROI is, because most times IT is probably one of the top expense lines on your P&L outside of payroll. And so how do you actually measure and justify like what a true ROI is on that relationship?
I mean, I think you could probably do like a SWOT analysis, or like a Ben Franklin kind of chart, and just kind of like figure out insource or outsource. And if you decide to outsource, company A, company B, company C. Calculating ROI for this type of thing has some objective criteria, in looking at maybe the size of the MSP, the specialty in your particular industry, in your compliance, the ability for the MSP to respond. And basic, like an easy example is financial services firms. In my experience, it was one of our verticals, and law firms also. In general, the user base is kind of like general help desk, typical stuff. But the partners or the ownership require, white glove or like, Ritz-Carlton level support. And so you basically have to staff accordingly, and you have to price accordingly. So I think it's setting the right expectations. But to those executives, the return on investment is feeling like they are your only client. They make a phone call whenever they need something. Someone picks up the phone, solves their problem. That experience, to me, a lot ties to the ROI. So I think there's probably tangible ROI that you can calculate. What would my return on investment be if I outsource this versus I insource this, what would my cost structure be? What risks are there in play, and so on. And then vice versa. I think that um, uh, businesses that have an MSP that's like really specific in nature immediately see that ROI, but it's intangible ROI. MSPs to some extent are selling an insurance, right? They're basically saying, we will cover you for everything you need IT related if something happens. The better the MSP does, the less load IT has, and actually it could create conflicts in the relationship because the MSP is like, well, the client says, well, Mr. MSP, we have been in here for 3 years. What are you doing? Like, I don't ever call you. It's like, you don't call me because I'm doing a great job. I'm doing exactly what I said I was going to do. I'm giving you the return on investment, which is that IT has grown into an asset in your business, not a perpetual liability. So I think that looking at both sides is important. I think there's financial metrics around deciding what you qualify as a return on investment on having any outsourced vendor versus insourcing those services. You can probably calculate if you're in a highly regulated business what your risk is of not meeting compliance.
Yeah.
So, but there's also like, do I know if I have a problem that I can call someone at that business and solve my problem quickly? Technical problem, an accounting problem, a contractual problem, any problem related to this part of the relationship with that vendor. I think I don't want to say that's priceless. That's not fair, but I think it's extremely valuable in the relationship you have with any partner business that you're outsourcing to.
Yeah, and I think again, there's so many variables that can go into the relationship. Like specifically, if you want to quantify certain things, you can quantify, all right, if I have an internal IT person, what happens if they leave? What business interruption do I have? What timeline do I have to go hire somebody? Do I have to bring a recruiter on to go and find that person? You have some of these considerations that kind of go into the ROI. But same thing on the other side is like, I hear the conversation a lot of I'm paying you X amount of money. I could hire somebody to do this, but you have to walk through the mechanics of, what fully utilized outsourced IT is versus what someone that is internal can actually produce. And so those have pros and cons on both sides. I think the biggest thing we're trying to get across here is it should be part of like your scorecard when you're overall evaluating an MSP. What is the ROI that they are presenting and telling you the things that might be different or change in either direction, the relationship that you're about to have, and then obviously the metrics. So I think that kind of rounds out like what we would typically suggest when you're, evaluating and what good would look like. I think the next kind of pivot to this part of the conversation is more about, managing those expectations now that you've set them up front when you were going and doing your evaluation, and also, setting standards so we're all on the same page. I see um, a lot of organizations that maybe overpowering the services by selling a bunch of things that you might not need versus tailoring the solutions to what the business needs. Give me your perspective on that. Like, do you see that happening
Yeah,
where MSPs might oversell services and products and things, or vice versa?
I'm sure it happens. Like I think that um, um, most businesses that are outsourcing to an MSP don't have somebody to lean on for like professional technology advice, or they may. If
Mhm.
they do, they can have someone help evaluate whether or not the scope is overstretched. Um, but I think that being very clear on what your expectations are as a business, and then also finding a trusted partner um, can start to mitigate that. I'm hugely passionate about speaking to references. Like the for sure in an engagement with MSP, I would ask, I want to talk to 3 of your customers who have been with you for at least for 12 months or 18 months. And like, I kind of want to ask questions to them, like, what was the first 6 months like? Like, I'm sure that if it were bumpy, Did it get smoothed out? How did they smooth it out? Have you had any major issues that you couldn't overcome? What does the communication pattern look like? So I think references are a good place to check in, and on who you're about to, engage in a business relationship with. So, you could probably parallel this to like a contractor at your house. You call the plumber, and the plumber says, "Well, unfortunately, your drain line of your septic tank is," and you don't know anything about drain lines or septic tanks, and they give you a quote for $10,000 to fix it. And you're like, I don't know any different. Like, I guess I have to do this because the plumber says they had to do it. And they're okay. So I'm gonna get two quotes. And the next guy comes and he says, well, like you have this, but you also has $18,000. And now you're in like la la land of trying to assess something that you don't really have knowledge about. And if you don't have a plumber in your family or like a cousin or a friend in this business, you're kind of stuck. So you have to use other signals to decide whether that vendor is someone that you want to do business with. Do they respond to your phone calls, emails, and text messages on time? If you ask a question, do they give you a straightforward answer? What were the responses from the references? How fast did they provide references? And like, as an example, if I ask you for 3 references and you send me 2, that's a trigger. Like, I'm just flagging you on one thing. And if I call the 2 references and one of them says something a little fishy, that's a flag. And so like the reality is you can just empirically judge who you're about to do business with, and give yourself options. Like it's, MSPs or any other, partner or vendor like this is used to a bidding scenario. They're used to, you know, doing comparisons and saying, well, my plumbing company has been in business for 30 years. You should trust us because of our tenure in the industry. Oh, well, our plumbing company has only been in the industry for 10 years, but unlike the 30-year company, we have 900 employees across the country. So we have experts in a variety of fields, and we specialize in replacing drain field, and so on and so on. So I think those signals took the flag, right?
Yeah. So what about, I think the signals are good. I think give us something, give us that we can use, right? So like, what about is there like a framework that we should be going based off of? If I don't know anything about IT and I'm like, I just need the stuff that, is
I
what's
yeah,
right for my business, or am I aligning to like my cyber liability requirements? Like, how do I know I'm getting like
yeah.
the right
I,
stuff
I,
instead of like all the stuff?
so there's a lot of answers to the question, and the more answers you get, the more likely you have. So number one, you probably have a friend that can help you make this decision that's close enough to you. I'm sure you field calls from friends about this in, outside um, of your market. Um, I think that you can absolutely lean on, as an example, when you fill out a cyber liability insurance questionnaire, whether to purchase the insurance or to renew it, it asks very specific questions. Do you have multi-factor authentication? Do you have a security awareness training program? And so those are triggers. You obviously would like to say yes, because then your insurance will be less expensive. So that's a good place to start. I mean, you could certainly use the variety of AI tools to ask questions around this. To me, there's and it goes all the way up. Like the PhD version of this is if you're a compliance focused business and you have to follow any of the variety of compliances, whether they be CMMC in manufacturing, whether it's NIST compliance, which is, whether it's SEC compliance in the financial service space. Like, there's just so many of them. A lot of them have very direct, objective criteria. Here's what you have to have. And so when you go for SOC compliance, as an example, you have to attest to certain things, and someone will check, oh, you said you have a security awareness program. Show me it. Show me what's the software doing it. Show me that all your employees are enrolled, and so on. So, like, I think that you should definitely build your own framework. There's definitely existing kind of programs or existing places to start. But also, I think that I want an MSP that's within 1 hour of my office. that's a criteria for me. So if you're 2 hours from my office, that doesn't work for me because I want someone that can show up here in an hour if something's really wrong. So there might be criteria that, I want an MSP that can provide services at a certain price. This is my budget. I can't afford more. This is right for my business. So I think having that ready when you have the first meeting and then auditing against it is how to manage that relationship for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So what about like, again, back to like expectations and setting those, you know, what about MSPs and, handling your vendor management or your contract reviews or even like ensuring that you're getting the most out of like the tools and applications that you use on like a day-to-day basis? Where does the MSP come into that conversation, if at all?
I think that the I think anything you can get out of a fixed price recurring relationship is more return on investment. So if the MSP offers vendor management services and will audit a phone bill or an internet bill for you and make sure that you're getting the best value and there's no increase in cost, I don't see why you wouldn't do that. For me, this is the MSP is a business, just like your business is a business. So to me, I might ask the MSP, hey, like we're renewing our commercial liability insurance. You guys seem like a business that has a lot of risk. Like, who do you use? Do you like your broker? So I think leaning in on as many services as possible, and obviously as the MSP grows in maturity, like a small mom and pop MSP will have less capabilities than a larger organization. A larger organization will offer a variety of ancillary services that could materially benefit your business within the scope of the relationship you guys already have. And so I think this is where the relationship plays, because in most cases like that, you have a client success manager, an account manager, a VCIO, and that person is charged with ensuring that you have a great experience. So if you're meeting with them on a quarterly basis or an annual basis or whatever the cadence is, saying, hey, great, you guys solved a bunch of tickets for me. They were solved lovely. Everybody in the company is happy with your company. Like, what else can you do for me? And I think that's, as a business, you're naturally dragging more ROI out of the partnership. And the MSP might be excited to provide additional services to you because it might expand the engagement. It might, hey, I'm looking at expanding to my office to a different geography. I know you guys are not in this geography. How do we handle that? Let's talk about it. So I think that goes back to the partnership. It's just having the dialogue.
Yeah, again, back to the relationship, the communication. It's key for sure. So, we're getting towards the end of the year now, and I think another place that a lot of organizations aren't specifically getting the value out of their managed service provider is specifically where it comes to budgeting and planning. And the reason for that is there's a falsity in our world that we as MSPs get a bad rep for thinking that our clients don't realize they spend money on IT. And so we don't talk about it. And I know us at Charles IT are very different, where we're very in your face with the budgeting side. And I'd love to hear what your perspective was, during your time with Primo and Thrive. But, what things should the MSPs, like how deep should they be getting involved in your actual like budgeting throughout that process? Because me, an accountant by trade, that world is near and dear to my heart. But it's something that, I think a lot of organizations are missing in their actual relationship with their MSPs.
Yeah, to me, this is like guessing on what the future will be, as opposed to predicting it and measuring against it, is a very flawed business strategy. And so to me, like, if I'm outsourcing a function, if I have a partner in a particular function of my business, whether it's wholly delegating my IT to an MSP or even part of that relationship, I want to know not only what I can expect and what the ROI is, but like how much is it going to cost? And the MSP is going to be able to catch, like there's the tangible business relationship with the MSP. I pay X dollars for the recurring cost of the MSP services, but also like the MSP knows that I'm going to have to replace hardware at a certain point when it becomes end of life. they know, I think we're in a cycle now where we're upgrading from Windows 10 to Windows 11. They know how many machines I can upgrade in place. They know how many machines I have to buy net new. And so like, I just want to put that in my budget and I can plan for it. So like, it's definitely a frustrating feeling. And I think that more mature MSPs don't do this, which is why I would sort of steer anybody that I would talk to in that direction, is that there's no surprise. There's no like, hey, it's time for a monthly meeting. Oh, by the way, your warranty's up on your server in 60 days. You need to replace it or migrate to the cloud. It's like a catastrophe. Like that whole conversation is just like, it breaks the relationship because the business is now scrambling to come up with cash, or like, do I finance this, or they just absorb this new risk that they weren't prepared for. Like, yeah. I want the doctor to tell me 10 years in advance that if I don't stop eating bacon, I might have a heart attack. Like I feel like that's exactly what the MSP is there for. Is if you had an internal IT department, the internal IT department would be meeting on a, in budget season. If you run calendar year, October, November, we're starting to have this conversation. November, we're building out the budget for next year. December, we're confirming the budget. January 1, budget hits, and we know, we have this planned expense in Q3 to do a replacement of our network infrastructure in our Dallas office. So like we've budgeted for that. When it shows up and it's a $100,000 expense, nobody's surprised. Like, oh yeah, we said we were going to do this. Like we planned for it. We bought the equipment on time. We bought it at the most favorable price because we used incentives that happened to appear in Q2. So I think that in every case, it's no surprise to anyone on this webinar or otherwise that planning for something is better than being surprised by it. To me, I would lean heavily on my MSP to help me make the right decisions, and I would question those decisions. I would ask the right questions. I would double check. I think that any prudent business owner is doing that anyway. But I think again, once you have a good partnership with an MSP, you can start to trust them more and more as they make suggestions.
For sure. I think one of the interesting things though is, if you're evaluating an MSP, it's diving into that conversation and figuring out how deep do you actually go, right? So we could be talking about, we're going to set up a workstation and server refresh cycle, and we're going to plan projects when they need to happen, whether it's expanding a new office, it's flipping your infrastructure, your networking, those things will kind of be, I consider like table stakes to budgeting. But what I think is the most critical is like, how deep do they go? Are you an acquisition focused organization? Okay, great. There's an expense that comes to those. There is certainly an IT expense that comes to those. Are we talking about that? Are we involved in that to help you kind of navigate what that looks like? Or every year you come up with a hiring chart, right? You figure out, I need 25 new people this year. Great. There's a cost that comes with every single one of those people coming on, from a licensing side to the tech side to hardware to even what you're planning for their burdens and other benefits that they get in the organization. But we should be talking about those things, and you should be leveraging your MSP as much as possible to help kind of give you the understanding of what those things might cost. Maybe even an ERP migration, right? If you're like, I think I want to go to the cloud version of this.
Why would you not lean on your partnership for this? This is like the epitome of the relationship is the more you communicate and share. Here's my plan. I plan to acquire 6 companies in the next 2 years. My company's going through major challenges because of import-export duties. Whatever it is, like you're having a business conversation with the MSP, and the MSP says, here's the technology implications of your decision, your circumstance, what's going on. That implies that you have someone that you trust. That implies that you have someone that can have a high level business conversation. All of this ties to the maturity of the MSP and like who you're engaged with. But to me, this is a no brainer because it's actually where you drag the most ROI out of the relationship, right? Like you're not just dragging ROI to fix a printer, you're dragging strategic business conversations to move the business forward and grow.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so, these are all spend conversations, right? What about the flip side? How can you leverage your MSP to, come up with opportunities for savings? Because right now it's always like, every time they call me, they want to sell me
Yep.
something, right? How do you flip that narrative to make it more about, hey, I want to help you save money and optimize? What does that look like?
It's a good question. I spent a lot of time with our client base talking about business. Like, so by nature, an MSP is a technology business. So the people inside the business, probably the ownership, the leadership team, are technology enablers. So there's people, they're probably people that started using AI before anybody else. They're probably people that know a variety of different software vendors for payroll processing or project management. And so for me, like, again, I think this ties a lot to the business conversations. Business conversation number one is, hi, Mr. MSP. I know we're in year 2 of the contract. Unfortunately, we just got notice from our largest customer that they're going to be contracting by 50%. This is going to impact our business by X, Y, and Z. How do we change, modify, adjust the relationship, whether it's our relationship or the tools that I have in my business, in order to create a cost savings this year? I fully expect to get swing back in the other direction, but it's going to take me 6 to 9 months.
Hmm.
I think that's all. I hate to belabor the word relationship, which we have in the conversation, but that's really what it comes down to. So cost savings can certainly be a process optimization, business optimization. Um, a very easy example I can think of is, instead of replacing one computer at a time, replace 25 of them and say, can I get a better price per computer if I'm buying them in bulk? Sure, that sounds like something reasonable. Also, the labor to execute the work is going to be done in bulk. We're going to set up 25 computers for you at the same time. Again, having the business conversation. But I think that there's a lot of things that a mature MSP will see inside of your business. And I think asking the right questions and sharing the right information, being very candid about your expectations, and not just the relationship expectations, but like, my expectation for the next 90 days is this. I need this now. We're doing an ERP configuration. I need your staff on standby. I might call you with 24-hour notice and have to cut over. Like, I need you there for me. I think that whether it be cost saving or not, I think the key is back to what you said. How are you driving the maximum value out of this relationship, or the value that you need at that moment?
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree there. And I think, again, there's a lot of practical ways that you can get those benefits from working with an MSP, right? It's like, what are some vendors that you evaluate, right? Like, that you have relationships with. Like, we have the ability to go and say, I will run your internet provider bill against every company out there and figure out, can I get you a better price for the same speed, or better speeds for the same price? Same thing with a printer copier vendor, right? Those things are there. It's set it and forget it. When in reality, those are things that constantly go up in price every year. And if someone is not going and advocating on your behalf to negotiate those things, it's you're leaving dollars on the table. Same thing with your phones. All those things are places where MSPs can come into play and help you evaluate and potentially find some of those cost savings.
I agree. I think that um, all of those are places that we and my former business provided that service. There was no benefit to us. It was pure, like, hey, this is something we can do to help. And I think that if you actually do save the money, or you do improve a business process, you're materially creating value for them beyond just the scope of the core relationship.
Yep, that's what I said before, the relationship capital. That's everything that is. It's you going and doing whatever you can to try to help better their business, even if it's not just related to the IT side.
Yeah.
So I guess to wrap up the budget side of this conversation is, we're heading into 2026. We talked about planning. We talked about where we can save. What should IT leaders be prioritizing in their 2026 budgets?
The obvious answer is AI initiatives seem to be a big, it's obviously the current, the most substantial things being talked about. Um, I generally like to play also in risk and doing risk assessment. A really easy way for you to know whether, if you're a mature organization and you have a mature relationship with your MSP, I think that just like with any material vendor, you evaluate on some term and doing an external assessment of your environment and saying, hey, third party cybersecurity provider or a third party consultant, can you come take a look at our full IT environment and provide us a report of your findings? I think that that generally creates opportunities, or it creates validation that the relationship is actually what you think it is. I think that particularly if the incentives are aligned and you're just paying for a consulting engagement, that consultant's going to do their job and give you the truth. I think that cautiously working your way into new trends like AI or something like that, as it relates to your business risk, like a lot of the LLMs that people are using are retaining the data that's put in them. Is the data that you're putting into them something you're allowed to put in them? Is it violating some compliance or some relationship act you have with your customers or your employees? I think that just being very sensitive and deploying tools like that intelligently is very important. I also think that for a large part, IT has moved to cloud-based services. But I think a lot of business gets stuck. They get stuck in, well, I have this old hardware, this old tool in my business, and it's kind of a pain to move it or change it. And so until it blows up, I'll just leave it there. And I think that that's creating a necessary risk. And so I think that even just saying it out loud, hey, Mr. MSP, I have this fax server that's sitting in a closet that we send 8 faxes a year because it's required in my healthcare business. I don't really want to get rid of it. I don't want to spend money to fix it, but like, I wonder if there's something you could do about it. And the MSP might say, let's try. And so having that, I would encourage that next year be the year where businesses reconsider the material technology risks that they have, of which they're stubborn about. An old piece of software, an old server, of something that just is there because it's there and it kind of works, like the old phone system, whatever it is. I think that there's no need to be stuck. And in most cases, the pain associated with replacing that system. I could just give an example. An example is I supported a business this past year in migrating from one giant ERP software to another giant ERP software. And the thought of doing it was just like mind numbing. It was just terrifying for the business. All accounting practices, all project management, everything's going on. And I said, but let's just learn. Like who would we switch to? What would it look like? We're not going to do it. We're just going to talk about it. And so I ran a project for a couple months and like did a full assessment. And we came back and we said, look, this is the path to do it. Oh, and by the way, there's $200,000 a year in savings once we make this switch. Light bulb, right? Like, okay, I'll listen. And then we kind of mapped out what the switch looked like, and we gave tons of time. And like, it didn't come without pain. Changing any material system in a business is pain. Changing an MSP has its pain. But I think that at least with the vendor that we migrated to, I spent a lot of time setting the right expectations. This is what I expect. If this doesn't happen, then this is what I expect. Here's the contingency. Setting the expectation internally. Hey guys, it's going to be rough for like 6 weeks. We're going to have 1 week where we can't even put timesheets in. We have to do them manually on an Excel spreadsheet. It's not going to be fun. And obviously, like that week, like we had lunch catered in the office. Like we kind of set it up for success. And so now that we're on the other side, everybody's like, oh my God, I can't believe we didn't switch. And it's like, yeah, do you remember what we were talking about like 6 months ago? So I think that I would love to see businesses not just look at cool things that are sparkly and shiny, but actually look at like the root of their business. Like what are the major things that they need to consider? maybe next year, maybe in the next couple years, but start planning for that now.
For sure. I think that's similar to like, using the personal side to these stories is, yeah, I would love to add an extra bay on my garage so I can fit a third car in. But and that might add value and it'd be cool and I want that. But there's a crack in my foundation and I should fix that. It's the right thing to do, but it doesn't bring me joy. It doesn't make it seem like I'm spending on something great. But that's the stuff that is going to end up holding you back the longer that you keep
You're
kicking
you're
those cans.
you're hitting a nerve with me because we forgoed replacing our outdoor kitchen area for a new roof. And our new roof is
There you
beautiful. It's
go.
lovely. And like, but the old roof was just old. There was nothing wrong with it yet, but it was the right thing to do. And now we have a long-term solution that I don't have to think about for
Mhm.
30 some odd years. And we'll get to the outdoor kitchen. Like, it's not that we won't do it. It's just a matter of prioritizing and planning the most important thing.
Yeah. So again, this time, this kind of ties right into like what the next topic is about, and that's specifically about like these big projects and like when are they actually worth doing. I think we kind of talked a little bit about, the beginning of this from the budget side. How do you determine when is the right time to bite the bullet and focus on modernizing your environment. So same thing, maybe not implementing the cool AI thing over here, the garage bay that I'm trying to add, the kitchen type situation, but instead focusing on replacing the roof or fixing the crack in the foundation.
Yep. Um, it's a good question, and it's not an there's not an easy answer because there's a variety of different things. So like this ERP switch that we made, the ERP was not stopping the business from making money. It was just materially inhibiting growth and ease of use. And for us, actually, reporting was a big problem in this particular use case. I think the answer is objectively, can you afford it? What impact is it having on your business? And what benefit do you do by making the change? I think you can have an objective conversation. So like a really like microscopic thing that I can remember about in the MSP universe was when do you actually replace a server? And so the MSP perspective and the perspective we took is once the warranty can no longer be extended. So like typical server would come with a 5-year warranty, and then we would extend it for a couple, like 8 years, 7 years was like what we considered like the useful life. But I've seen servers that are perfectly functional at 15 years. Like, does that mean I should keep a server for 15 years? No, like I don't think so, because I don't tolerate risk like that. Like, I think that there's a way to plan for a capital expense, small, medium, big, whatever it is, and know when it's happening. This is all tied to the conversation 20 minutes ago about having that dialogue with your MSP in advance. So to me, if the MSP is meeting with you on a quarterly basis, which they should, they're coming and saying, hi, your server warranty is going to expire in 18 months. So you have 18 months to start filling the piggy bank with this amount of dollars to do a migration to Azure or AWS or cloud provider, or to replace the infrastructure or do something with it. And I think as the owner, I would ask the MSP, is my server going to explode if I don't change it the day the warranty is over? And the MSP will say, hopefully, well, no, but here's the outline risk that I'm concerned about and you should consider. And so just like when you're speaking to the doctor will say, well, you may not have to have this surgery, or you may not have to replace your roof, but here's the risk that you play. If your roof leaks, or if a hurricane comes, that's a good example. I'm in Miami, Florida. So we have hurricanes. We get notice. The hurricane tells you, a week and a half, 2 weeks in advance, hi, I'm a hurricane. It's going to be bad. No roofer is re-roofing my house in 2 weeks. So I'm basically betting on my current roof every time a hurricane shows up that it won't leak, that it won't have a problem, that it won't fly off. I'm not interested in that. That's not fun. So to me, like I think that one of the talents of business owners and entrepreneurs is risk assessment. By nature, they are risk averse. That's why they started the business. That's why they went out to build. But also they're managing the risk in their business of a variety of different things, technology being one of them, and leaning on the MSP to say, well, here's what I think. And like you make a great point, which is like, at what point is the MSP pushing to sell something versus actually expressing concern? I think that's very much tied to the relationship of who you're in business with, the right expectations. To me, I would set the expectation of saying, you know what, I don't like taking risks, but I don't like wasting money. So I would tell you, whenever you think we need to replace something, give me like 10 or 15% more time. That's how much I need to make the decision. But let me flex the decision or vice versa. Like I am a zero risk tolerance. Like whenever I need to replace it, I will send you a check and we will replace it.
Yeah, I think that's a huge conversation piece that you have to have. And even if it is during the evaluation process, like, hey, are you going to provide me with the business case for any of these upgrades that I'm potentially needing to do, right? So the server is a great example. The business case is 5-year useful life. With the warranty, you might be able to extend it to 7 or 8 years from the 5, but we should be planning for this because here's what happens if we don't. Server goes down, takes us X amount of time to get it back up and running in some other capacity that's going to limp along your day-to-day operations. So now you're getting impacted from a productivity side, and then you're going to have to go and actually make the investment, and it's now becoming a rushed thing, and it's more painful. And so we recommend that you do it at this time.
So I'll play Mr. Client for a second. But Sal, you sold me this incredible backup appliance that's sitting in my server room, and you told me that like if something happens, like you could basically bring me back to life.
Yeah.
You know, like why can't I just use the backup, and then while the backup is running and I'm living on the backup, then I could just buy the new server whenever it dies. So maybe I get an extra year of life because I have the backup.
You certainly could. Again, it comes back down to the risk tolerance. Is yes, I can spin you up on a backup and have you continue to limp along, but at what detriment is that going to be to your business? Whereas we could say, hey, let's proactively plan for this and have a structured, upgrade process and timelines and communication and all that kind of stuff. So that way, this is just part of the cycle and you don't even feel it happening as it goes on. I think that's where those things come into play. Your backup in that scenario, that's insurance. Like you have insurance in place, but no one's like itching to use it, right? You'd rather mitigate the reasons for it.
I'm the guy that squeezes the end of my toothpaste because I want to get every drop of toothpaste that I paid for, and I want to get the most out of my server. So how do I marry those two things, right? Like how do I make sure that right as the server is just about to fade into the darkness, that my new server arrives and is right there and ready to go?
Yeah, I think that's strategic road mapping and planning for this. Great. You think 8 years, I think 5. If you want 8 years, as long as we can get a warranty for 8 years, on year 7, month 10, that project is going, and we are going to upgrade that server so that way we get to year 8 and day 1, we're on a new server. Squeeze the most out of that toothpaste tube, my friend. So I love that. And I think, kind of going through that and talking about when you should be making those investments are a big part of the relationship that you have with the MSP. But, as we're transitioning here towards the end of the conversation, I'm looking to kind of hear from your perspective, what do you see? Because you were part of the MSP that you started that sold to a really large organization, and you're still a part of like the peer community and a lot of people in our space. What do you think are the things that are going to be setting the top MSPs apart going into 2026?
I think that I could go on a tangent about new technology, and I think that this word partnership like hits me really hard. And I think that some MSPs can do it, and some cannot. And some are there to just be a service provider or a vendor. Um, as I build businesses in my life, I never wanted any of my service providers to have a vendor relationship. I wanted to have somebody who was on my team. So just like at the end of the year, you thank your employees by giving them a bonus or a gift, or you host a meal for them. We would send gifts to our partners, to those that have referred business to us. And I think that I'm hoping that more MSPs recognize their importance, but more importantly, that the businesses that are leveraging MSPs give 10% more time to that relationship, because it's not going to become less important. It's going to become more important. And I think that diving a little deeper, you know, um, one of my old clients said, must be tough being you. Nobody ever calls your office happy. And he said, I'm actually calling to say thank you. And I was like, what? And he goes, somebody handled something for me this morning. It happened exactly the way I wanted to. And I feel like every time I call your office, I'm just frustrated about something that's happening. I'm in the middle of something and I need help. And I don't ever call your office just to be like, hey man, thanks. And I think that moment, which was like 4 years, maybe 5 years into building my business, was a dawning moment for me, because I used that moment to remind myself of the work that we do and like be proud of it. But also it actually gave me a lot of confidence to build a relationship with our clients. So I used to not like spend quality time with our clients. We wouldn't like go to lunch, because not many private equity firm owners or lawyers want to go to lunch with their IT guy. And at some point I was like, I'm not the IT guy. I am a partner. I am the partner in their business. I'm making sure without me, they don't succeed the way they do. And so I asked for the time. My clients actually very happily gave us the time, and it evolved our professional relationships. Subsequently, those clients are still friends of mine today. There's a few clients that are actually like I'm working with and I do work with. So to me, it transcends just that one business or that one professional relationship when you have like a true um, partnership that is mutually beneficial.
Yeah, for sure. So as we kind of go towards the end here, looking to, I guess, give some final thoughts and or some learning lessons that you've had from both sides of the coin now. So whatever you want to leave the audience with from a closing thought perspective.
Huh. I can do some good rapid fire stuff. So like the relationship with your MSP is obviously a contractual relationship. Navigating and making sure you understand the scope of the contract is really important. If you have auto renewals, the term of the agreement, what the expectations are from both parties, I think that's a really important thing to navigate when you're making the selection or renewing this relationship. I think finding that friend who can be like your um, sounding board, somebody who's close to you who will give you just candid advice and has no financial or professional motivation. I think it helps. It helps to have someone in the room that can answer questions or help you navigate. And spending time with whatever MSP you choose, spending the time with them to understand their business. Something we've always practiced is first meeting is at your office, second meeting's at my office, and so having our clients come to our offices, see that it's not just two guys in a basement tapping on keyboards, meeting our staff. Like there's a very cool moment that happened when our clients would meet their pod of engineers that they've never actually seen in person, and they're like, oh, like you're Joe? Oh, hey Joe, I've talked to you like 42 times on the phone. Thanks so much, man. That's really nice. So I think that there's a lot of things that being a good client, but certainly just developing that relationship, not just with the ownership of the business, but everybody inside it.
Yeah.
And I think that I'll just double down on the big projects thing, like thinking about that one thing that you're stuck on, and what's the one thing you're going to change next year about the business from an IT or a technology standpoint.
Love it. Love it. So on my side, I think for me in my role as it's morphed in the organization and today, as a shareholder and also, owner of a couple other businesses, I think the biggest thing that I've found and wanted to like take away for anyone that, we do business with is you want to do business with people that you like. And you want to make sure that you enjoy those people, that you can build a rapport, you can trust them. And there's so many different ways of how you can validate that that's going to be a long-term relationship. And even starting off by, great, Ivan, you're the sales guy. How long are you involved in this account from when I signed the paper? Do you just poof and disappear? Or are you
Yep.
still around? Are you coming to my company holiday party? Like where do you actually continue to stay involved? And who else in the organization will I actually be able to build a relationship with? I think that is one of the most important things that you should be asking when you're, going through this process of evaluating MSPs.
Yeah, I think there are. I think retaining the relationship with that person is critical, and then obviously where you get. And somebody actually taught me about this. It was actually a roofer. A roofer had a sales guy that came out and sold the roof, and then he met on site with me and the project manager and the account manager, and we all signed a document called the transfer of trust. And it was basically saying, I, the salesperson, am transferring the trust that I have built with this customer to the PM and the account manager to make sure that this roof does great. And like, we had some challenges during the roofing process. We went back to the salesperson. They navigated it together and solved the problem. So just a wonderful relationship and ultimately a great roof.
That's awesome. So again, want to say thank you to everyone that joined today. Hopefully you did get some real insight and good tips and tricks to make sure that you're using those to leverage your MSP. I want to thank Ivan again. Appreciate you coming on and sharing your perspective and giving the audience some things to think about, things to consider, and hopefully something that they can put into their repertoire as they go down their process of evaluating MSPs. For those that are on the webinar today, we'll be posting some clips and things following this. Would love for you to share and engage with those and share your perspective of what you thought about the conversation. And stay tuned for the next webinar. We'll have more interesting conversations to come. So thanks again for joining, everybody.
Thanks, Al.